Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back to Real Opinions. And today it's the first film that I managed to catch at the London Film Festival. Just before it hasn't officially started yet, but it's the first one I've managed to watch. And it's a 2016 Polish film called Playground. It's kind of it's the plot is that it's kind of the last day of school, and it follows on these three children, two kind of rough-ish boys and a girl that likes one of the boys, and it kind of follows their last day and the girl leading up to asking one of the boys out. From that's all I kind of knew about it before going into it. After watching it, it's mostly based around the UK murder case of James Bulger, which I wouldn't recommend looking into it because it just kind of made me sad. Basically, it's a famous murder case from the UK. I didn't know it initially. I think it was just past my time. But about two 10-year-old boys that tortured and killed a 3-year-old that they found in a shopping centre and took away from the shopping centre. And that's where this film leads up to. When you hear that's what that's based on, you kind of think, oh, that's strange. That doesn't sound anything like what the film's setting up. And you're right, it's not. I tend to focus on reviewing films kind of purely from a technical level. I mean, I can enjoy the story, I can enjoy this, that, and the other, the themes. I think a lot of that enjoyment of themes and all of that comes from how well it was technically put across, how well the story flowed, how well the characters just written, how well the actors acted. And in this one, I feel like it's one of the few ones where I think my morals just made me dislike it. I'll focus on the technical first because that'll mean I'll kind of stick to how I typically review stuff, and I can actually be kind of unbiased for the first half. The cinematography was fine. I mean, it was very drab, but I think that was kind of the thing that they were going for, but it never really changed the whole way through. It was just very long, handheld shots that looked like they were trying to make it look like a style, but it was most likely just for budget reasons. But again, I can appreciate that. I mean, I can understand that. Script, very scarce. There's hardly any lines. I think mostly just because they're two child actors and they know that they can't really act brilliantly, which comes to the acting, which I thought was par for child actors. They were good enough child actors. They were just like every scene where it actually involved proper acting, that wasn't just telling the kids to do this and then leaving it. Any scene involving that, the editing suddenly like sped up rapidly, and I felt like it wasn't just because it needed to pick up the tension of the scene. It was purely because they had to cut around the acting. Pacing was just needlessly slow for an 81-minute film. Oh, it felt way longer, and that's not just because I'm not bothered by long shots. Sometimes I quite like just having a bit of room to breathe in films, allowing you to think about what's happening on screen, allowing you to think about what's happening with the characters. But it wasn't a lot of the shots that were just really long didn't give you anything to work with. Like, there'll be a shot, the one that stood out to me was that it's like almost a minute of one of the kids waiting for someone to get out of the bathroom, and there's nothing for you to think about while you're watching this shot. I mean, there's literally nothing happening. It's the back of the kid's head. There's literally not, and felt like padding and wanting to be smarter than it seemed. That's all I can really talk about for the technical side of it. I mean, I've seen a lot worse, but this wasn't good. On the moral side, I did not like this. The actual scene of murder, I think, was done as, if you had to make a film about this case and you had to show it on screen, I'd say that was the best way of doing it, which is basically just shot from a far distance with the two kids. It's quite obviously that the baby, the 3-year-old, is CGI, but to be honest, you can't get a 3-year-old to, like, they can't actually hit a 3-year-old, they can't hit a dummy and make it look realistic. I mean, I realised that's the way that they had to do it. The bit that I didn't like about it morally is that it didn't seem to give a reason why the kids did this, which you'd think is like the whole building up to. I mean, they tried to make it seem like this girl asking the two boys out is the reason that eventually led them to do this, and they showed like little aspects of how these kids are kind of rough, but there's nothing that finally clicks that that's why they're going to do this today. I don't know, I felt like it was just using like a real life case that I genuinely find quite disturbing and sad, and I felt like it was almost using it to get an art film out of it, and I felt like that was just wrong. It might have been saying something about the Polish system of education at the moment, Don't know. It wasn't there. I couldn't infer it. It might be saying something about Polish economics or something like that because they go to the mall or whatever, and there's, I don't know, but it's not clearly there. I mean, they add bits into the child's backstories which aren't really discussed, which aren't real, which weren't in the real case, but they're kind of added there, and you feel like they're trying to make a point with that, but it's really not. It's just there as something in the beginning, and you feel like the director's or writer or whatever is trying to make a point. It's not that it's not clear. It's just that it just feels like it's trying to be edgy, and it's with a subject that I don't like that it took quite a famous case of a child being murdered by other children and then used it to make its own points. I'd say if there was ever a film that you could make about this case, it would be a documentary, and it'd be a documentary that showcases like how children can lead to doing something this evil. In this, I know I never got any inclination that these kids were going to be, and I don't think that's the point. Yeah, I didn't like this film. I don't know if this is a kind of rambly review. I just don't. I'm just thinking on it, and I just don't like it. It just left a kind of sour taste in my mouth, and the director or whatever, the people behind it might have been trying to put across a good message, but I didn't get that, and also it wasn't that well made. It was boring, not well acted, not particularly well shot, but again, you can tell it's budget, so we'll give that a shot. But I think 3 out of 10.